Good afternoon, everybody, or I should say good evening, because this is a little bit of a late middle of the day market update. End of the day market update, we should call it, and we will also do a bit of preparation for next week, alright? Because I did want to make this video. We have some major events coming up next week, obviously also with Liberation Day, the 2nd of April, with all the tariffs. And just in general, it's going to be a big week in terms of news, alright? So I just wanted to give you my thoughts on the fundamentals, on the news. But then also taking a look at Bitcoin, and we'll focus on some altcoins. There's a couple of altcoins that I think are interesting. We'll take a look at XRP, of course. But that's what we're going to do. I'll try to make this video not too long, but there are some things we need to talk about. Now, first of all, taking a look at the economic calendar next week. Monday, we don't have really any major data. Tuesday, also not really major data. There is some economic data, and I care about that, but it will probably not make the market move a lot. Same thing with Wednesday, same thing with Thursday. Well, Thursday we have PMI and initial jobless claims. You know, that could be interesting. Balance of trade as well, so that has to do with the import tariff. So Thursday, Friday I think are important, because Friday we have non-farm payrolls, unemployment rates, and Jerome Powell speaking. Alright, so that's the economic calendar. Basically only Thursday and Friday matter. Friday the most, but that's what you need to know. And then, of course, like I said, we'll get to that later. I have a special promo for all of you. But like I said, of course, the 2nd of April, Wednesday, has to do with the tariffs. And that's also the main story right now. All right, because what will happen in a couple of hours is that the futures for US equity markets will open. And depending on how they open, that will have a major impact on the crypto market as well. As you can see, Friday they closed very, very bearish, but we already knew that. So that's going to be the most interesting part. And ultimately, that is going to decide where Bitcoin and where crypto is going. All right, there will always be altcoins that, you know, outperform Bitcoin or underperform Bitcoin. But the correlation between US equities and Bitcoin has been extremely high over the last couple of weeks. At some points it was a bit lower, but ultimately the direction has always been correlated in the last couple of weeks. So that is something we'll have to see, alright? And that ultimately depends a lot on how the stock market opens, right? So at this point of time, it also makes no sense to predict that we're going to go up or going to go down. I can tell you what I think is most likely. I can tell you the important key levels. I can tell you the different scenarios, and that's what we'll do. But just know that, all right? Know that the upcoming week is going to be very uncertain, and is going to depend very much on developments in the trade war, if you want to call it a war, and what will happen, all right? So that is what you need to know. So you should, at least if you're trading altcoins that are correlated to the market, you should keep an eye on the news. And that's unfortunate. For most of you, it might be better to just sit out a week, do not trade, do not buy anything, do not sell anything, and then be back the week afterwards. But that is the reality of next week. Now, talking about the markets, all right? So talking about Bitcoin here, here you can see the two scenarios I have in mind. First of all, and we talked about it this morning, there is still an imbalance here to the upside at 84,000, 84,500. Next 24 hours, I think the chance is still, even though, you know, the longer it takes, the less, the lower the chance becomes. But I still think that there's a high chance that we will fill that imbalance. But then there's two scenarios, and that's either, well, in both scenarios, I think we will actually reject from that price initially, but then we will either drop down to the bottom of the range right here, which we are in at 81,000, or at least the previous range, which we have reclaimed back into at 81,000, which would signal weakness, which means that we can also get a drop down lower afterwards, but I'll keep you updated on that, of course, throughout my videos. Or we get a relatively weak rejection and we get a breakout above 84,500 and a continuation up to the imbalance at 86,000, possibly also back up to 88,000. At this point of time, given what we've seen historically from all the weekly opens when there's tariff news and just in general tension around that and a higher volatility index, etc., historically it's always been bearish. All right, so that's why, you know, with this move included, but that's why I would say this is the most likely scenario. And I think this is only a possibility if the fundamentals change for the better. All right, so that is something we will definitely still talk about tomorrow morning as well. But I think that's what you need to know regarding Bitcoin and most altcoins, because as you can see right here, most altcoins are very correlated still to Bitcoin. Now, before we talk about altcoins, what I quickly wanted to say is that one of the exchanges I work together with very, very closely is Blofin. I only work with exchanges that I actually use myself and that I think are good. Those are Bybit and Blofin. With Blofin, I have started a new campaign, all right, that runs until the 19th of April. Amazing campaign. If you use the link down in the description and you sign up there, then you can participate. Otherwise, it's unavailable to anyone else outside of the crypto community. And first of all, what you can get is a 10% cashback on a deposit up to $3,000 in a futures bonus. And then depending on how much volume you trade, you also get an extra bonus right here. So in general, Blofin is already an amazing exchange to use for trading. I use it myself, like I said. But outside of that, you can also get some amazing rewards now too. So check it out. I'll leave the links down in the description. Now, lastly, talking about altcoins. So most altcoins, not interesting, very correlated to Bitcoin. Most of the ones we will talk about, same thing, all right? Because Sui at this point of time, I think this is interesting, but at this point of time, it's not, all right? It's just one of the altcoins that could turn interesting. And then the main level to look at is 2.5, all right? If we can get that breakout here above 2.5, which would probably go hand in hand with a relatively strong market, I think this is going to be one of the altcoins that can actually rally a lot. So keep an eye on that. And then, well, talking about XRP as well, I haven't even covered that. XRP, what we said this morning is still completely true. What I said is that we would probably get one more pullback. Potentially, I still think we can have one more spike up, by the way, but after that, I do think we're going deeper into our main support level here. So that would be 2.05 and 1.95 before ultimately bouncing back up, because that is also still what I do expect from XRP, all right? So something like this. And then lastly, there's one coin that I like quite a bit. It's relatively high in futures volume, in leverage volume, but I think it's also gaining quite a lot of volume in the spot market. Yeah, a fair bit here, EOS. So this is also going through rebranding right now. This is a historically very old coin, of course. But what you can see if you take a look at the technicals is that we are, well, it's holding on relatively well, first of all, compared to the markets. But outside of that, there is a fundamental reason to be bullish on this, and we're gaining a lot of volume. So for me, the main level to break is still here somewhere between 60 and 65 cents. But I do think, unless we get a market crash, I do think that that a breakout is coming up. So this is definitely one to keep on your watch list. But for now, I think it's not good to buy. But definitely, I think there's some great opportunities coming for this. So this is EOS, right? So if you don't know, this is it. But that's it for right now. Like I said, if you want to participate in the campaign on Blofin and in general want to use an amazing exchange for your trades, check out the links down in the description. But for now, thank you for watching. Take care and bye.